Hello guys, welcome back. Today I will be playing Minecraft and doing the Minecraft block wars. It's gonna be super fun, so make sure to watch the video and enjoy. So the Lapis are going to start off with the walling off of part of their expansion, which will be a smaller part, but it's still pretty decent part. It will be quite a bit of walling. And of course their empire is now massive. It's being called the Lapis Empire now. And it's doing really well. Of course, this area is now walled, or getting walled off. This is amazing for the Lapis because, they like being behind walls so that they can't just be attacked. And so they've basically moved everybody in from these houses and moved them out to there. And now they've started their destruction of these houses to allow for a military growth session. And so they will destroy all of these houses. They will not yet destroy these houses because these houses still have people in them, but they will expand their military a decent amount. With all of this becoming military blocks. And so of course the Lapis are growing in numbers yet again. And they're preparing to attack the moss. But they haven't attacked the moss yet. They don't really think that's a good idea for now. What they do is they get their commander and one of their commanders or generals and 8 troops and send him over. So, like this. And send him over to the yellow or to the gold, and they call out for the gold to surrender. The gold don't want to surrender, obviously. The gold actually start putting walls down at their front. But it's not looking like enough for them. And the Lapis send 3 of their troops back around behind the gold, and this turns into an attack. The Crying Obsidian do try and help the gold. They send one of their, so they have 3 units, well, they have 4 units, and they send one of their units to go help the gold, but this won't matter. And the gold get overwhelmed on this side. They do manage to actually kill 2 of the Lapis troops. They get overwhelmed on this side. And yeah, again, they do kill quite a few of the Lapis troops, but then they get taken over. And the general comes back telling the Lapis leaders that they won, and he wants to know what they're going to do to the gold, and they decide to make the gold a puppet called the Diamond. Their puppet specifically. And so now the Lapis kind of are taking over part of this area. They decide to expand quite a bit. And they also put down more walls to the area because they don't want their puppet being conquered. The Obsidian, of course, are horrified since they now have 2 superpowers next to them. They have the moss with their puppet, the kelp blocks, and then they also have the Lapis with their puppet, the diamond. And so they're horrified. They do decide to take an area for themselves. It's just going to be a little housing area. And they take all of this and put walls down. They actually decide to expand their borders a little bit more here. And so the obsidian do expand a tad bit, but not really much. Or prying obsidian, not obsidian. The obsidian are dead. The kelp expand a small amount. This way. Actually, quite a bit this way. Hoping for a nice big chunk of land to be added to their territory. They also expand slightly this way. And the moss themselves do expand a ton. So they add in that. They had walls and then to take a little bit of territory. And so the Lapis haven't really taken any territory in a long time. They've kind of just been isolated from society, kind of just doing their own thing. Yes, they did just take the yellows and make them their puppet, but they decide to well, first I need to get this over with right here. So moss will be taking a little bit of land. So the Lapis haven't done much conquering in a very long time. Mostly due to the fact that all of the previous times they've tried to conquer stuff, they've lost and failed to conquer. But this time the Lapis are a superpower in the world. And so they decide to send the same general that attacked the gold. Oops. With the few units. So 10 units, I'm gonna say. He wasn't that good of a leader, but they feel like they can give him a redemption time. So he has some of his units there. 2 units here. A unit here. And 2 units here. So 10 units he has. And the Lapis also send about 5 units with a commander. Oh, another one. And they're basically planning to do a push and take all of this. Now, of course, their assaults never have worked before, but before they can do this, the Redstone decide to attack the red glazed terracotta, and they do a major assault, attacking multiple key regions, and here's what they managed to take. So they managed to take this kind of a large area for housing, and they managed to take this military. I guess that wasn't really housing, but it was an area that could be used for housing or military. And so they take that territory, and then they also do an assault of the nether, of the red nether bricks. A very light assault, nothing really worth mentioning. Kind of just a little bypass of territory. But they're basically trying to unify the Red Kingdom, or the Red Empire. They can't really do that with the Moss having this, but trying to unify the base land, base territory. And so they do that, and then the Moss are reacting to what's going on in their territory. So they're scrambling with their troops to try and stop the Lapis. And they tell the Lapis something that's threatening to the Lapis, which is that if the Lapis attack them, then their puppet, the kelp, will attack the diamond which the Lapis just got, and they're telling the Lapis that that would be a fatal loss for them. But then the Lapis say that if they do that, then they will call in the Moss to attack their trade system and to also defend the diamond and to attack the kelp, which honestly isn't a good thing for the kelp or for the Moss if that's happening. And so it's kind of a stalemate here, but then the Lapis just decide whatever, and they send their troops forward. They quickly are taking territory, and it's basically bad all over. Well, they're not taking territory, but they're, like, I don't know, getting next to the Moss, pushing in, So it's basically bad for the moss. They also don't really have a good foothold here. Remember, this isn't their main territory, so they don't have the defensive features that they need. And then on the other side, the Lapis call their troops forward to launch the assault. But it's only a portion of their troops. Their other troops are waiting to get to time where they need to be called forward, and the Lapis are sending troops forward from their walls to kind of help defend or attack, should I say. But the moss are holding up. They're distributing their troops well. Generally. And so they're fighting back. The Lapis then decide, whatever, we'll just send the majority of our troops forward. And then the Lapis commander and one of his guards go forward to see if they can make a difference. And he tells his guard to go up and fight. So the moss are like, okay, now we need to do something about this. So they tell their ally, the kelp, or their puppet, the kelp, to send 4 units to go ahead and attack the Lapis's puppet. And then they tell the kelp to send another unit to to attack the Lapis from the rear. The Lapis commander then decides he's gonna 1v1 this kelp soldier. And so the moss are kind of stretching their lines. And the Lapis start to push in quite a decent amount through the moss's defense lines. And so the moss are being pushed back. And so the Lapis are trying to push forward. They are pushing forward, but they're not pushing forward that much. And then their commander kills the kelp unit, but is killed, which is a horrible loss for the Lapis troops here. And Now the Moss see that they could win this, but then the Lapis called troops from their rear to come forward and also gather a few units. And so they sent 3 units forward, and this is a really tough fight, but then the Lapis start pushing forward through the Moss's defense lines, and the walls are all destroyed. The Moss troops are falling back, trying to hold this. And so they're losing territory. The Lapis are gaining territory. And so they're pushing forward, trying to pressure the Moss to lose. And now the Lapis are securing the border kind of here. And the Moss are suffering heavy losses, but they do start to push with the kelp into the diamond, and they actually win the fight over there. They don't take it militarily, well they do, but they don't like keep their troops there. They just want to win the fight there. And now the Moss tell the Lapis that if they don't stop this assault, then they will tell the kelp to send all their troops into the Lapis. The Lapis know they can't have that happen, but they can't really stop it if it does, because they have all their troops basically fighting the Moss. Over here, a great assault happens. And yes, quite a few of the Lapis troops do end up dying, but this is a massive loss for the moss. Loss for the moss. And so the Lapis are kind of pushing in, threatening encirclement. And so they push forward. And are definitely beating the moss. Especially threatening an encirclement. I feel like that's a pretty big win. And over here is going great for the Lapis. They're encircling the moss. They're getting a massive amount of territory. Over here it's not. They actually lose control and are pushed completely out of the territory by the moss. And it's a pretty big failure for the Lapis here. Like, losing this much is pretty bad. But it's not a total catastrophe. They're still encircling the moss. And finally, a moss defender gets killed. The Lapis troops push forward. And the encirclement begins. And so now the moss are encircled in this area, trying to stop the encirclement, but they can't really. And so it's a massive loss for the moss, and the Lapis are telling the moss that they could have peace if the moss agreed to give them the entire area. Of course, the moss say no, and the moss told them that they will not let that happen and that the kelp will wipe the Lapis out. And so Lapis think for a few seconds, and then they say, okay, well, since you won't give us that, what we want is all of the territory that's above your military area right here. And the Moss think about it for a few seconds, and they're like, and their generals are talking, saying, well, we don't, even though they haven't taken it, There obviously we will lose a ton of men, good men, from that encirclement, and we can't lose that. And then also they have this giant area of land that they've already taken within us, so they could do more damage if we don't accept this. So we should just accept their fate. So then the Lapis get their peace deal, and so now the peace offering is like this. It's not actually exactly what the peace offering was like, but it's better, I feel like, than the peace offering was. And so it's gonna be like this. I don't like that, but okay, this is the peace deal. So, the peace offering is honestly alright. It's not good, but it's not really that bad for the Most. The Lapis are kind of saying, well, hey, you still have your freedom in this area. You still have what you kind of want. It's not all bad for you. And the Moss are like, well, it kind of is all bad for us. We had this territory, now we lost it. And Lapis, of course, build a wall so that the Moss can't attack them and take back their territory. But the Moss aren't really capable of attacking anyone anymore. They used to be this kind of superpower, but they were only a superpower for a few days. And then they kind of just collapsed. Because of the rebellion, and now they're super weak. They're not super weak, but the Lapis have caught up and are now kind of the superpower. So this is kind of what the area is going to be looking like after the war. It's not looking good for the Moss. And it's looking, honestly, pretty good for the Lapis. They are now the strongest nation by far. Of course, that rebellion definitely hit the Moss hard. And so Lapis gained a ton of land during this episode. And now they're most likely going to want more land and more land. And here's what the Lapis could look like. They could have all of this territory as well, which would make them bigger than the Red Empire was at its max, at its peak. The Red Empire was all of that, and I think maybe a little bit of that, and then it had basically this amount of this. So the Red Empire was massive, but the Lapis could be getting larger than it. Like, they're basically already larger than it, but they're maybe a tiny bit smaller. But if they can manage to take all of this, they will be much larger. And then also their puppet makes them larger. So the Kelp call their troops back, or the Moss call the Kelp back. The Kelp didn't really get anything out of this war, which is sad for them, but they did kind of like grow. They did grow in this episode a decent amount, which is always good for a nation. But yeah, so that's basically almost the end for the episode. But we will have the Reds, or the Redstone, actually gaining a little bit of land. It's not that much land, but it's a decent amount compared to what other nations get or got from this episode. And that's about it. So please let me know if you want to see more of Block Wars. And this is the monstrous size of the map now. I remember when it was just so small. Now it's gotten so large. And make sure to like the video and subscribe. Bye.